Julia was a single mother in her late 40s, working hard to provide for her 22-year-old daughter, Emily. After her husband's passing, Julia had taken on the responsibility of raising Emily alone. She worked 2 jobs to make ends meet, often sacrificing her own needs for her daughter's comfort. Emily, however, was a stubborn and headstrong young woman. She often disobeyed her mother, ignoring her advice and doing things her own way. Julia tried her best to guide Emily, but the young woman was determined to make her own decisions, even if they led to trouble. One day, Emily came home late from college, ignoring her mother's repeated warnings about safety and responsibility. Julia was worried sick, but Emily just shrugged it off, saying she was old enough to take care of herself. Julia tried to reason with her, but Emily stormed off to her room, slamming the door shut. Julia sighed and rubbed her temples, feeling a headache coming on. She had tried her best to raise Emily right, but the young woman seemed determined to make her own mistakes. Julia remembered when Emily was younger, she would listen to her mother's advice and follow the rules. But now, it seemed like Emily thought she knew better. Julia decided to take a deep breath and try to talk to Emily again. She knocked on Emily's door and said, "Hey, kiddo, can we talk?" Emily grumbled something under her breath, but Julia took it as a sign to come in. She sat down on Emily's bed and said, "I know you think you're an adult now, but I'm still your mother and I worry about you. Please, just listen to me and be careful, okay?" Emily rolled her eyes and said, "Mom, I know what I'm doing. I don't need you to tell me what to do." Julia felt a sting from Emily's words, but she tried to stay calm. She said, "I just want what's best for you, sweetie. Please, just be careful." Emily sighed and said, "Fine, Mom. I'll be careful. Can I go now?" Julia nodded and said, "Okay, but promise me you'll think about what I said." Emily nodded and quickly gathered her things, eager to get out of the house and away from her mother's lectures. As Emily left the house, Julia felt a sense of worry wash over her. She knew Emily was stubborn and headstrong, but she also knew that the world could be a dangerous place. She hoped Emily would listen to her and be careful, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was going to go wrong. The next day, Julia received a call from the police station. They told her that Emily had been arrested for underage drinking and disorderly conduct. Julia was devastated. She had tried to warn Emily, but her daughter hadn't listened. Julia rushed to the police station, her heart racing with worry. When she arrived, she was greeted by a stern-looking officer who told her that Emily was being held in a cell until she sobered up. Julia was allowed to see her daughter, but she was shocked by what she saw. Emily was slumped over in a chair, her eyes glassy and her speech slurred. Julia felt a wave of anger wash over her. She had warned Emily about the dangers of underage drinking, but her daughter hadn't listened. Now, Emily was in trouble with the law, and Julia was left to pick up the pieces. As she left the police station, Julia couldn't help but think about her own mistakes. She had worked so hard to provide for Emily, but had she been too soft on her? Had she enabled Emily's behavior by always bailing her out? Julia realized that she had indeed been too soft on Emily. She had always bailed her out, thinking that she was helping her daughter, but in reality, she was enabling her behavior. Emily needed to learn from her mistakes, and Julia needed to let her. With a newfound determination, Julia decided not to bail Emily out of jail. She would let her daughter spend the night in the cell, hoping that it would teach her a lesson. As Julia walked away from the police station, she felt a sense of guilt wash over her. Was she being too harsh? Should she have just bailed Emily out like she always did? But Julia knew that she had to be strong and let Emily face the consequences of her actions. The next day, Emily was released from jail, looking sheepish and embarrassed. Julia was waiting for her, and she could see the shame in her daughter's eyes. Maybe, just maybe, Emily had finally learned her lesson. Emily was quiet and subdued as she walked out of the police station with her mother. Julia could see the shame and embarrassment written all over her face. For once, Emily didn't argue or try to defend her actions. She simply followed her mother to the car, her head hung low in defeat. As they drove home, Julia tried to talk to Emily about what had happened. But Emily just shook her head and said, "I know, Mom. I messed up. I'll try to do better next time." Julia was taken aback by Emily's sudden humility. Maybe this experience had finally taught her daughter a lesson. When they got home, Julia made Emily call her college and explain her situation. Emily was devastated to learn that she was facing disciplinary action and could potentially lose her scholarship. Julia was proud of Emily for taking responsibility for her actions, but she knew that this was just the beginning of a long and difficult road to redemption. Over the next few weeks, Emily faced the consequences of her actions. She was put on probation by the college and had to attend counseling sessions to address her drinking problem. Julia was proud of Emily for taking responsibility and seeking help, but she knew that it wouldn't be easy. Emily struggled to balance her schoolwork and her new responsibilities. She was tired and stressed all the time, and Julia could see the strain on her face. But Emily refused to give up. She kept going to her counseling sessions and worked hard to catch up on her schoolwork. One day, Emily came home from class looking exhausted but triumphant. She had received an A on a paper she had been struggling with, and her counselor had praised her for her progress. Julia was overjoyed to see her daughter smiling again, and she knew that Emily was finally on the right track. As the semester progressed, Emily continued to work hard and make progress. She started attending meetings and found a support group of fellow students who were also struggling with addiction. Julia was amazed at the transformation in her daughter. Emily was confident, responsible, and determined to succeed. One day, Emily came home with a surprise announcement. She had been accepted into a prestigious internship program for the summer. Julia was overjoyed and proud of Emily for achieving her goals. Emily had proven to herself and everyone else that she was capable of overcoming her mistakes and achieving success. As they hugged and celebrated, Julia realized that she had been wrong to doubt Emily's potential. Her daughter was strong, resilient, and capable of greatness. And Julia knew that she would always be there to support and guide Emily, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Just as things were going well, a new challenge arose. Emily's internship program was in a different city, several hours away from home. Julia was worried about Emily being so far away, especially after all they had been through. But Emily was determined to make it work and prove to herself and her mother that she was capable of independence. Julia reluctantly agreed to let Emily go, but only if she promised to stay in touch regularly and seek help if she needed it. Emily agreed and off she went, starting her new adventure. At first, everything seemed to be going great. Emily was excelling in her internship and making new friends. But then, Julia started to notice that Emily was pulling away again, just like she had before. She was distant and preoccupied, and Julia couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Julia tried to reach out to Emily, but she seemed evasive and secretive. Julia's worries intensified, and she began to wonder if she had made a mistake by letting Emily go. One day, Julia received a call from Emily's supervisor at the internship program, expressing concern about Emily's recent behavior. Emily had been missing deadlines, forgetting appointments, and seemed disconnected from her work. Julia's heart sank, and she knew she had to take action. She booked a flight to visit Emily, determined to get to the bottom of what was going on. When Julia arrived, she was shocked to find Emily's apartment in disarray, with trash and unwashed dishes piled up. Emily seemed relieved to see her mother, but also embarrassed and ashamed. Julia realized that Emily was struggling again, and this time, it was clear that she needed more support than ever before. Julia stayed with Emily for a few days, helping her get back on track and encouraging her to seek professional help. Emily finally opened up about her struggles with anxiety and depression, and Julia listened with a loving and supportive ear. Together, they worked out a plan to ensure Emily's well-being, including regular therapy sessions and a support system in place. Julia returned home with a sense of hope and relief, knowing that Emily was on the path to healing and growth. Emily began attending therapy sessions twice a week, and Julia made sure to check in with her regularly. Emily's supervisor at the internship program was understanding and accommodating, allowing Emily to adjust her workload to suit her needs. With time, Emily started to open up more, sharing her struggles and fears with Julia and her therapist. She began to realize that her anxiety and depression were not weaknesses, but rather signs of her strength and resilience. Emily started to reconnect with her friends and colleagues, and her work began to flourish once again. Julia was overjoyed to see Emily thriving, and she felt proud of the young woman her daughter was becoming. As Emily continued to navigate her internship and therapy, she met someone new, a charming and charismatic guy named Alex. He was attentive, caring, and loving, and Emily felt seen and heard in a way she never had before. But, unbeknownst to Emily, Alex had a dark side. He was involved in illegal activities, using his charm to manipulate young women like Emily into doing his bidding. He began to use Emily to deliver drugs, hiding them in her bag or disguising them in everyday items like toothpaste or lunchboxes. Emily, blinded by her feelings for Alex, didn't realize what was happening until it was too late. At first, Emily thought Alex was just being helpful, offering to carry her bags or pack her lunch. But as time went on, she started to notice strange behaviors, like how he would always insist on carrying her bag, or how he would get agitated if she didn't do what he said. She began to feel trapped and manipulated, but she didn't know how to escape. One day, while delivering a package for Alex, Emily was stopped by a police officer who found drugs hidden in her bag. Emily was shocked and terrified, realizing too late that she had been used by Alex all along. Emily was arrested and taken to the police station, where she was interrogated for hours. She was devastated, feeling like her whole world had come crashing down. But as she told her story to the police, she realized that she had been a victim of Alex's manipulation and exploitation. The police believed her and began investigating Alex's activities. Emily was released with a warning, but she knew she had to take action to protect herself and others from Alex's harm. She confided in her mother, Julia, who was shocked and heartbroken by the news. Together, they vowed to expose Alex's true nature and bring him to justice. Julia and Emily went to the authorities and filed a complaint against Alex, providing evidence of his illegal activities and manipulation. The police launched a thorough investigation, and soon, Alex's empire began to crumble. His other victims came forward, sharing their own stories of exploitation and abuse. Emily's bravery inspired others to speak out, and soon, Alex was arrested and charged with multiple crimes. Emily felt a sense of relief and closure, knowing that she had helped bring a dangerous person to justice. She continued her therapy sessions, working through the trauma she had experienced, and began to rebuild her life with a newfound sense of strength and purpose. As Alex's trial approached, Emily was anxious but determined to testify against him. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she wanted to ensure that he couldn't harm anyone else. Julia was by her side, offering unwavering support and encouragement. In court, Emily faced Alex, who sneered and tried to intimidate her. But she stood firm, recounting the ways he had manipulated and exploited her. The judge and jury were moved by her testimony, and Alex was found guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to a long prison term, and Emily felt a sense of justice and closure. She realized that she had been given a second chance, and she was determined to make the most of it. After the trial, Emily felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She began to rebuild her life, focusing on her internship and her therapy sessions. She started to reconnect with old friends and make new ones, people who supported and encouraged her. Julia was proud of the strong, resilient woman Emily was becoming. Emily started to explore her passions, discovering a love for art and creative writing. She began to write poetry and short stories, using her experiences to fuel her creativity. She even started a blog, sharing her writing with others and finding a sense of purpose and fulfillment. One day, while attending a writing workshop, Emily met a kind and gentle guy named Jack. He was charming and witty, with a quick smile and a passion for literature. Emily found herself drawn to him, but she couldn't shake off the memories of Alex. She was hesitant to trust again, fearing that Jack might turn out to be another manipulator. But as they spent more time together, Emily realized that Jack was different. He was patient, understanding, and genuinely interested in her well-being. He encouraged her writing and listened to her stories with empathy. Emily's heart began to heal, and she started to see that not all men were like Alex. Jack was the opposite, kind, caring, and true. Emily was excited to introduce Jack to her mother, Julia. She had told Julia about Jack, but she wanted them to meet in person. Over dinner, Emily nervously observed as Jack and Julia interacted. Jack was charming and respectful, asking Julia about her interests and listening attentively to her responses. Julia was impressed by Jack's kindness and genuine interest in Emily's life. She saw how happy Emily was when Jack was around, and she felt grateful that her daughter had found someone who treated her with love and respect. After the dinner, Julia pulled Emily aside and whispered, "I really like him, sweetie. He's a great guy." Emily beamed with pride, knowing that her mother's approval meant a lot to her. Emily's heart raced as she told her mother, "Mom, I want to get married to Jack." Julia's face lit up with a warm smile. "I'm so happy for you. Jack is a wonderful person." Emily then turned to Jack and said, "My mother likes you, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Jack's eyes sparkled with joy, and he got down on one knee, pulling out a small box with a beautiful ring. "Emily, from the moment I met you, I knew you were special. Will you marry me?" Emily nodded eagerly, tears of happiness streaming down her face. Jack placed the ring on her finger, and they shared a tender kiss as Julia looked on, beaming with happiness. Their wedding was a beautiful blend of Emily's and Jack's cultures and traditions. Julia walked Emily down the aisle, tears of joy streaming down her face. Jack's eyes shone with happiness as he gazed at Emily, radiant in her white wedding gown. They exchanged vows, promising to love and cherish each other, and sealed their union with a kiss. The reception was a vibrant celebration of their love, with friends and family dancing and feasting into the night. Emily and Jack shared their first dance as husband and wife, swaying to a romantic ballad, lost in each other's eyes. As they cut the cake, Emily whispered to Jack, "I'm so grateful to have you in my life." Jack smiled, "Forever and always, my love." Years later, Emily and Jack sat on their porch, holding hands and watching the sunset. They had built a beautiful life together, filled with love, laughter, and adventure. Emily's writing had flourished, and she had published several books, inspiring many with her story of resilience and hope. Jack had become a successful entrepreneur, using his business acumen to support local charities and empower young entrepreneurs. Together, they had raised two wonderful children, who were now grown and making their own way in the world. Emily turned to Jack and said, "You know, I never thought I'd find happiness again after Alex. But you showed me that true love exists, and I'm forever grateful." Jack smiled, his eyes shining with love. "You're my everything, Emily. Forever and always." And as the sun dipped below the horizon, they shared a tender kiss, knowing that their love would last a lifetime.